see David and Deirdre on, Mark, yourself is on, Sarah's on, Walt is on. Is anyone aware of anybody we're waiting on that isn't on the call?
Okay.
And I'll announce myself. Dennis is here.
Hey, Dennis. Thank you for joining.
Sure.
Excellent.
So I just want to tee it up, Paul and Dennis, from the VCE side, just so you understand who your audience is on the phone here, and I'll hand it off to you guys to do this. You've obviously done it many times, so I'm sure it'll be smooth delivery. So just as background for everyone, myself, Drew, Mark, and others have been engaged with Paul and Dennis from TSANet on a couple of different sessions, primarily to discuss the benefits and the value proposition around TSANet as a whole, and more specifically, if for the purposes of this conversation, the case exchange functionality, which is a benefit of our TSANet membership. Case exchange, we believe, could be a collaboration solution that would allow us to interact with, for example, in this case, Red Hat, in a more automated and systematic fashion, as opposed to, say, traditional pencil and paper. So the purpose of this call is for Paul to walk us through a demo. We'd like this to be an interactive session. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to ask. Post this meeting, we're going to ask the leadership team for a go, no go on leveraging this technology. And as I say that, Mark, I just want to double click with you on VCIT's ingest of this flow. They're already looking at this, correct? We unmute, Mark? I'm going to assume Mark is on mute. I'll answer the question for him. I'm pretty sure I know this one. So the project's already been entered with IT for evaluation. We have definitely some information that Paul and Dennis have provided previously that they are reviewing. And we just need to be prepared to provide a go, no go to them when they're ready to go execute. So Paul and Dennis, appreciate the time. I want to hand it over to Paul. I think you're presenting today. And
yep, great. And you guys can see the slides here?
I can.
Sure can.
Just confirming?
Yeah.
Great. So I figured it'd be a little bit of combination, just a few slides to give you some context around this, and then I'll do a demo that will show you a few different scenarios that hopefully give you a great understanding of how it works. So as far as case exchange, as Chris indicated, it is a member benefit. So it's part of the membership. We consider as one of the features for member collaboration. A couple other highlights, I think, of this. First of all, it's a quick implementation. So it's not a customization, so to speak. It's a download of an app out of App Exchange and install and configure. So similar to how other apps on the Salesforce side work. So that makes for a fairly quick implementation, and then lightweight and flexible. I think once you see this, you'll get an understanding of what I mean by this. And essentially, it works similar to if you're familiar with how you might interface a CRM system to a defect tracking system. So we're not talking field level synchronization. You certainly can have triggers within your Salesforce to do things like that, but it's more of a messaging exchange between members, and that occurs through a new object that you'll find on the case record. And I'll show you some screenshots of that, but then when we do the demo, I think you'll kind of get an understanding of how that works. And then as far as the flexibility, you can define the data that you exchange. So you'll see there are some out-of-the-box fields that are included and are required, but you can define if you have some requirements for inbound cases, you can set that up with a template. So as far as deployment options, so we currently have two different solutions. One is CRM connector, and we currently support 3 different systems, so Salesforce, NetSuite, Microsoft Dynamics. And then there's also a web interface solution as well. So both of them work exactly the same way as far as exchanging messaging. Obviously, the big difference is the CRM connector gets the workflow right inside of your CRM system versus the web interface is kind of a click here, go to this external site. So obviously a difference from a process standpoint, but as far as how data is exchanged, very similar. And then this give you just an understanding here, and I think highlights again a little bit of the flexibility. So as far as deployment strategies go, there's a couple approaches that members take. First is just turn it on and use it for all of the relationships that they have. Certainly that's a very straightforward way. You turn it on, and then as new members get onboarded in the case exchange, they automatically show up in your pull down. The second is a phased approach, and that could be where maybe there's a particular department or a custom group that you're working with, and you just want to start it there. So that's a possibility, and also it's a possibility to start with the web and move to CRM later. So quite a bit of flexibility as far as how you take it into use as well. Okay, and then as far as what's needed, and again, hopefully this gives you a little bit of sense of the effort on each side, but we can certainly answer some more detailed questions on this as needed. But for the CRM connectors, obviously it does involve some IT work. For example, Salesforce system admin would download, install, and configure the connector. You would communicate to us what your deployment strategy is, and then we would work with you to ensure that the other pieces of the puzzle inside the TSANet member web are set up correctly. So your contact document, a few things like that need to be modified. If you choose a web interface, obviously a little bit different stuff, but very kind of similar. So again, not huge effort to turn this on and activate it. So as far as how it works, and again, I think this will become very obvious once we get the demo, but you basically have two players here, an initiator and a destination. And the initiator would open an escalation case with another member who becomes a destination. What happens then is the cases are linked, and the activity that's happening between the two member CRM systems are recorded. And you'll see this as far as where you see the additional section on the case record and how that information is recorded there. And very similar for other CRM systems. I know you guys are on Salesforce, so we're going to demo that. So I'll just kind of share with you this kind of high-level stuff, and we'll jump right into the demo. So as far as the case form goes, it adds a new section. You can see it here called B2B escalation. And what the user does is they select the B2B escalation if they need to create a new escalation with another member. That opens up a form, and they complete the fields. So they select in the target member. There's some common fields that get populated from the case. Of course, you can modify those, and then you enter some description, comments, attach files, whatever you feel is important to communicate to the other member. So again, this isn't the type of thing where it's grabbing a bunch of information out of your CRM system and you're not able to control that. You can control exactly what you want to message over to the other partner. Okay, and then the member website, I'm just going to go through this real quick just so you can just see a little bit. But from the member website, if you choose the web interface, again, very similar. You've got a list here. Again, members are able to, if they do not have a CRM system, they can still collaborate with you from the web, and that will show up in your Salesforce. So you can still interface with any other member. They don't need to be on Salesforce. They could be on one of the other CRM systems or the web. And then again,
questions, or
yep. In fact, I'm going to pause. I'm going to pause right here because then we got a great time for questions, and I'll break into the demo. So this is kind of the last slide here. And again, it just shows you from the web. It's really the same thing as from the CRM system. So same type of form, same type of messaging that allows you to, communicate between the different systems. So again, it doesn't matter if the destination partner is using Salesforce or NetSuite or the web, it will still work. So let me do this. Let me pause, take some questions, and then I'll break into the demo. If I feel the questions are best answered by the demo, I'll certainly ask to pause it. But if it's something I can answer right away, we can do that also. So fire away with questions.
Great. My name is Mark Maza, and I have a question regarding, if you go back to your slide 8, in there you define who the target member is, right?
Correct.
Is that a pre-populated field that the team would use a drop-down to select from, or is it just we put in a name that we know?
No, it's a drop-down. So that would show whoever is configured for case exchange, and you have also some control on that during the onboarding on which members you want to show up there, right? So it could either be, again, taking the option of who's ever on case exchange, I want them to show there, or you could say, no, I actually only want Red Hat for now. So you have some control over what you want to happen there.
Excellent. It's a follow-up question to that. You stated that they don't necessarily have to have a integration with us. They can actually send a note to us out from like the web into our CRM, right?
Yeah. So basically, well, let me kind of clarify that. So they must be on Case Exchange as well, but they can be on Case Exchange using the web interface, right? So any TSANet member has the ability to use Case Exchange. It doesn't matter your membership level or anything. All you really have to do is say, yes, I want to use it, and then select the solution, right? And again, the web interface certainly can work for anyone. It doesn't matter what CRM system they're using.
And can they only see those that we registered to actually be partnered with in the Case Exchange? For instance, if I only do Red Hat, I shouldn't expect to receive cases from Microsoft.
Correct. So as far as Case Exchange goes, you have control over what flows into your Salesforce system. When you join TSANet, though, there's, based on the level of membership you join, you still may receive escalation requests from Microsoft, but you could choose a different method to receive those. Does that make sense?
It does. Thank you.
And is that form B2B form details that's showing now? Are those fields all customizable, or?
Yeah. So great question. So there's a section of fields that are quote unquote out of the box and not customizable, right? And those are things like who's the initiator, who's the destination, and who's the customer, right? So those are kind of standardized fields. The other things that are standardized are things like the status and the summary description and ability to add comments and attachments. In addition to that, the user has the ability to add up to 20 custom fields. So you could add fields, say you needed to know a product name and a product version, right? You could add those too, or you need to know something else about the customer environment or the customer entitlement. So you can add fields. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was just curious because I don't really know, being so, we're still young in this process, what we would map, right, back and forth, and one to map coming and going. So I just want to make sure we have the ability to make those choices.
Exactly. And usually the question we ask is, in your CRM system, what are the required fields to create a case, right? Because generally speaking, you do want that data to show up when you receive an inbound escalation, right? And that'll kind of make sense. It plops into your open queue, the user enters it, goes into it, and you would certainly want to make certain that if you need a piece of data in order to save that case, you would want to receive that. So if that's above and beyond the basics that are provided out of the box, and you can simply add custom fields there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So any other questions? Otherwise, I can split in the demo.
Just one question. One of the things that I haven't used TSANet a long time, so I know you'll have to apologize for the question, was that we always needed the customer contract information to engage the other party. Mm-hmm. That's still a requirement, or? Yeah, so that's certainly something that members can define, right? So, for example, if you're, essentially the rules of engagement for Open Group is a common customer, right? Now, whether the member says, I need a contract ID or an email address of the contact's fine, I will say each member is a little bit different there. But generally speaking, for example, Red Hat, I know they don't require an exact contract ID, just some data for the customer that allows them to look it up and associate it in their system as well. Okay, thank you. Yep. Okay, any other questions? Okay, and then
one follow-up question. This is Mike Fairley. I do business operations. So in configuring the type of information that gets passed to a member company, is it all consistent, or can you have variance in that based on, a specific, like, if you were engaging with Microsoft, one set of data gets exchanged there versus Red Hat, another set of
Yeah,
data?
great question. So what defines the information is the destination, right? So Microsoft can say, when you send me a case, I want this information. And Red Hat can say, when you send me a case, I need this information, right? So when you select that pull down, it will pull up the template that destination has required you to fill in. Does that make sense? That's a question. So I guess in essence, yes, each destination can define some unique requirements for them to escalate inbound case into them.
So how would that make sense? So how would the B2B form on the sending side manifest? Would it be one consistent form, or would that change dynamically based on the receiving side, or does it need to be configured for each side?
No, it's dynamic, right? So when we onboard a member, right, just like, if we onboard you, we'd say, hey, what custom fields do you need, right? And those custom fields are going to show up then when Red Hat pulls down and says VCE. Now they're going to see a form that reflects what you need, right? If you escalate to them, you're going to pull up a form that corresponds to what they require inbound. So it dynamically modifies, and that's something that you only need to do once. You define what you need, everybody else defines what they need.
Great.
Does that make sense? So it makes it easy and not cumbersome. And again, this base information above here that you're seeing, everybody's got that, right? So that kind of has a fairly level playing field there. And then usually when people are defining custom fields, are usually related to details they need on the product side, right? So I'd say most of the kind of core information you need for the customer, generally speaking, is included there with a contact phone and email.
Great, appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Good questions, by the way. Okay, well, let me switch over to the demo here. I'm going to actually have two sides of the puzzle up here, and let me know if you guys are able to see these. So the first thing that I want to do here, and I've got a few different scenarios that will give you a little bit of sense of how this works. A couple that escalations have already been done that I'm just going to kind of show you some of the capabilities in the system, and then we'll actually exchange some data here. So the first thing here is far as what you do when you have a new case that does not have any escalation. So this is your engineer sitting there working on a case. It's not escalated. So you'll see in this scenario, there is no B2B escalation fields here. Again, they click on this form. They select the destination. In this case, I'm going to select Globex. It's our fake customer. If you did know the other end's case reference, you certainly could put it here. Same with this other destination information, but you can see here it's not required because it's assumed maybe you don't know that. And then if you know whatever information on the customer side, and again, generally speaking, this really helps with entitlement. So we do encourage people to put as much info as they want. Description. And again, you can see here that this pulled over from the case, but I could modify this. And then I can add a comment. So generally speaking, this is pretty targeted towards your request or your ask from the other side. Okay. Oop, initiate your contact phone. Of course, you need this. They need to know how to contact you if needed. Okay, and then you can see this escalation on this side. And then when you come over here, let me go and refresh this. we're going to see, let's see. And you see this inbound case. Okay, so here's kind of the other end. And again, this could be another person's Salesforce. It could be a web interface. But in essence, it comes in here. They see the comment and they see the information. And then this person could reply back. And you can attach files and all your kind of basic things that you would. All your
multiple files on a single attachment or a single
if you zipped it up, you could do that. And there is some exactly, and the file size is all defined based on Salesforce requirements. So that's kind of the default there. So if you have something larger than I think it's 15 meg or something along those lines, then you would need to have an external link someplace on that. Okay, and now you can see this reply coming back. Okay, and this is I guess where I would kind of highlight a little bit about what you get out of the box and then what most members would do on their Salesforce side, right? So again, you can see here that these messages are coming in, but we're not modifying things up in the case record, right? So we're not dynamically overwriting something or changing status or doing anything along those lines. But you could trigger those types of things in Salesforce workflow. So you could have a new B2B escalation comment comes in, change the status to action required, right? Or whatever helps you to alert the engineer or pop it back into an open queue or whatever kind of workflow makes sense based on your internal Salesforce processes. So consider this as it's a messaging system that you can see as related to the case here, but you have quite a bit of flexibility on what type of process triggers you want to implement on your Salesforce side. Okay, so that's kind of what I would call the basic. The other thing that you can do is you can escalate to more than one member. So here you can see an existing case. You can see down in the fields here that we've got some things going to Globex, but then some other things going to EMC. Okay, so if I was to drill into here, what you see here is these kind of separated out here then as well. So you are able to, within a single case, manage escalations to multiple partners as well. Okay, and again, it doesn't need to be the same information to both partners. It could be, I need to tell EMC this, and I need to tell Globex this other thing. And they do not all see each other's comments unless you choose that, right? So if you are working primarily, for example, with Globex, you just need one thing from EMC, and you really don't need Globex to know that you're collaborating with EMC as well. They do not see that message unless you send that to them as well. Okay. So the other piece then is new inbound case, and this will give you a little bit of sense. So again, I could be in some other person's Salesforce or what have you. My Salesforce is actually configured for Apple. I would just fill in the okay, and then I can put my customer information here, and you'll see how this can be helpful. Oops, sorry. keep on forgetting me. That as well. Okay, so now I fired off a new inbound escalation. Again, if I knew your internal case, I could put it here, and what it would do is it would automatically link to the existing case in your system. But if we don't know the case and we're just saying, hey, we got a new escalation, what that will do is it will show up here in the new cases. And you can see here the new inbound escalation. Okay. And it's going to have the information here then that would allow you to link it to your customer. And again, this is where different members maybe have different fields, right? So if there's some things that you need that aren't on the default screen, then you can add those as required fields and they would come in the escalation as well. So now you can see here we've got all the right things happening in your case. The user can then go into here and reply back.
I'm not seeing anything update into the case comments here on the Salesforce page. Does everything work direct through that B2B escalation template that you have?
Exactly. Now, you could, so arguably, if you wanted to have that also replicate case comments, you could. In fact, we did have, and this is one thing we're going to discuss at the end of September. We've got a meeting in the Bay Area that's going to look at strategy and features and functionality going forward. We have had one other member that said, hey, it would actually be nice to interweave the B2B comments inside of the case comments. So that might be something we add in a future connector, but you arguably could do that even with some Salesforce customization outside of the out-of-the-box connector features. But currently it keeps it separate. So I think the assumption was, yeah, keep it a bit separated there, and then if you want to add it and intermix it within your comments, currently you could customize that. But I think if we get enough members that say, hey, we would actually like this change and that change and the other thing changed, obviously that's really what's driving this product, and the functionality is what the members need. So don't feel like it's a static, we won't listen to your feedback type of product. It's very much a member-driven feature.
And how many customers are actually using this feature now?
Yeah, right now we're let's see. So there's 6 in production.
Okay.
So it's fairly new. So this it's a feature that we provided to members the end of last year, but we only supported the CRM connectors. And then this summer we activated the web interface. But to give you a sense of kind of where this has been, pretty much I would say the entire 2014 was piloting it with four members, and Red Hat was actually one of those.
Another question for you. So of your 6 members that are in production, do you have any data or anecdotal information on the level of effort that it took them to implement it? In other words, how many person weeks maybe, and what the total cost of implementation was?
Yeah, good question. And I can give you my answer, but I think I can also give you contact at 2 of our members that have implemented this, and that's Red Hat and Actian. And I think you could talk to their sysadmins and hear what they had to say as well. But for example, this is a sandbox thing that I got up and running in probably about an hour. So it's very, very easy to download, install this, and configure it. Where the add-on would be, right? So you take it's an hour to get it up and to do what you see here, right? If I was to configure some workflow, then depending on the complexity of your workflow, that's going to start to add on. But I'd be very surprised if either Red Hat or Actian had more than a couple days of work on this to get it going.
Paul, we actually did speak with Red Hat on this topic, and I'm just looking at my notes. They told us about 20 hours total time to get this thing into production.
Okay.
So,
yep.
Pretty recent.
Yep. Sounds about right.
Paul, Dave Thomas here from VT. Just a quick question about how much of the data actually gets cached on the TSANet side?
Yep. So some depends on what you use, right? So how this works is it's basically putting a message on this case exchange server, and then you can configure it, and we actually configure this by default. When you download it, it removes the message. Right, so basically your Salesforce is constantly pulling. Do I got a new message? Do I got a new message? Once it grabs that, we remove it off the server. So it's there for a period of time, and I can get some details on basically how long that is. If you're using the web interface, obviously got to stay there. Right, so if you use a CRM, you can have it removed. If you are using the web, it needs to stay there for you to kind of view it through this web interface. And then I think that's a good follow-on question, because this is always a question that follows, and that's on the security standpoint, right? So again, web interface is going to be the security of the web. Of course, it's SSL. Of course, we've got all the kind of security things in place. But again, it's for a normal kind of web application. If you are CRM to CRM, so for example, if you are exchanging and the other endpoint is CRM, you can actually define end-to-end encryption. So you can set up private keys with, for example, Red Hat, and make sure the payloads are also end-to-end encrypted.
All right, and then a follow-on question to that as well. What's the chain of custody like for data once we've hit the button to send it over to Red Hat? Is there like a lost and found or something where cases go that don't necessarily, maybe something glitches over the network or whatnot? We think we sent the case over, but Red Hat never received it. How'd that work?
Yeah. So there is a couple things that are in place for that, right? So one is this message doesn't go away until it actually has been downloaded to the other side, right? So Red Hat, for example, will retry. As you can see here, right, it's not there. It's actually not possible to send a message and have there be confusion on who the destination is. That pull down corresponds to a very specific account ID on the other end. So the things that could go wrong is obviously Red Hat system could be down. It could have trouble grabbing the message off the server. It will continually retry until it gets that message. So very similar to like email.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And how would we know if the Red Hat system is down?
Yeah, good question. So today we do not have, we'll say, error messages going back to you. I think that's something that we'll start to explore based on what members feel that they need, right? Again, I think, and also that's probably a thing of, do we give those error messages to your Salesforce team, or do we actually give it to the end user, right? And then, is it because the message wasn't retrieved after 1 minute or 2 minutes or 5 minutes? So I think those are things certainly be good to get your feedback on, as far as from a operations standpoint. What would your expectations be there on that type of behavior?
Question might be a little bit premature, just kind of given where you are in the product life cycle and 6 customers, but of your customers that are in production, how do you guys support them if they have, kind of critical production bugs or problems that they hit with the plugin?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So basically, kind of the support model is TSANet is the front end So myself and Dennis are the ones that are contacted here, and then the company that provides this is Subcase, and of course, if there are defects or production things down, it's hosted in the Amazon cloud, just to give you a sense. So all of that type of stuff is, of course, kind of operational. But if it becomes like there's some type of a defect, then we would go to the software vendor, and they would do a correction and post it out. And I would say, as far as back-end system stuff, obviously that's fairly quick and wouldn't be a lot of issue there. If there's a defect or some type of feature or functionality request that requires a new spin of the connector that you download onto Salesforce, that we would have to do a bit more QA and understand would it impact other members. So I think that obviously a difference there between defects and changes to the product. Defects obviously would be something we fix very quickly. If it's a request on, we'd like this field moved here, we'd like this functionality or what have you, we would do some checking with other members and make sure we don't break anything on their side.
Yeah, thanks. And have you had any circumstances where there's been, a critical bug fix?
Yeah, I would say definitely during the pilot in 2014, we had quite a few iterations. And again, I think it went pretty quickly. The thing I kind of try to message here is, and you can see this, it's not a super complicated solution. And again, I think once you start to do things like synchronize fields and things like that are kind of part of the workflow, it gets a little bit more problematic and risky. This is arguably kind of changing some lightweight messages with some data package in between systems. So at least so far, we haven't seen any issues along the lines of defects on that side.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's the kind of the other thing, so the fact that it doesn't sit here and push data into your system and dynamically change fields and status and stuff, there's a little bit of a safety there as far as if something went horribly wrong. It certainly wouldn't come in one day and you find a bunch of cases that have been messed up and deleted and such. It is completely decoupled from the case.
What about security then? If it's hosted on the Amazon kind of cloud and things like that, are you comfortable that everything remains secure between the two companies who are communicating?
Yes, and again, I think if you had concerns as far as that goes, you can define the end-to-end encryption, right, to where the payload is encrypted on your side and decrypted on the other Salesforce side, to where there's no chance in the middle of security concerns. So there is that, but I think generally, it's in the Amazon cloud, all kind of basic security stuff's in place. So there's some level of confidence there.
Paul, Dave Thomas again. Another follow-up question to that security concern about the Amazon cloud. A couple of our customers have legal constraints that don't necessarily let their customer information or their data go outside of the continental United States. Do you guys have any data center affinity set up on your cloud instances?
So there's redundant clouds, but they are both located in the U.S. And I can get to the exact locations if you want.
Great, just wanted to raise that.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Any other questions?
I think earlier you mentioned that there was the ability to include file attachments.
Yep. Exactly. Yep. So you can see. Did I do an escalation here?
What's your size limit on those?
Let's see. I think it comes right up here. It's whatever the Salesforce side is. So 1.5 megabytes.
Okay. Thanks.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions? So the one other place I'll point you to, just so you know where this is. If you go to the TSANet website, if you go under Contact Us, you'll see a thing here called Member Help. And with that, you're going to find here a case exchange. And there's quite a bit of stuff here for you. So, some brochures, some PowerPoint slides, some business case, a little bit of sense of kind of what you do on the IT side, some knowledge base articles, and then of course the full install guide. So if you go through this, you'll get a sense of the things you're touching in Salesforce when you're installing this package.
And all of our folks who are using this B2B interface, this case exchange, there's not a limit on number of users who can use it or anything like that. I mean, it'll be put into Salesforce and
exactly. Now you can control what users see this by creating different views of your case form and assigning that to different groups. So if you say, hey, I really only want my tier 3 to be escalating and collaborating with partners, you can certainly control that within Salesforce by the use of different case templates for different groups.
Okay.
Okay. Any other questions? Got a little bit more time. Otherwise, we can give your time back.
Well, it sounds like we're good. We appreciate your time today.
Perfect. And of course, if there's questions that come up after the fact, we're here. So don't be bashful. Ask whatever questions you want, and just let us know what's next.
Did I hear one more there before we drop? Anybody? Questions? Last call.
Nothing.
This was very, very helpful. Appreciate the time and the demo.
Great.
Yeah, that's good. Really does.
Perfect.
Yeah. Thank you, guys.
Great.
Appreciate your time today.
Okay.
Cheers.
Very good. Take care.
Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye.